All arrows are pointing towards Alex Sarr being the guy at number 2 for the Washington Wizards. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So a lot to unfold today. Like I said, all arrows are pointing towards Alex Sarr realistically coming to DC at number 2 overall for the Washington Wizards because a lot of news has come out about a potential trade back from Atlanta. So we're going to get into it. Like I said, a lot to unfold because I know that Alex Sarr is definitely number 1 on my list. I know it's number 1 on a lot of people's lists. We've named a lot of people potentially at 2. Donovan Clingan, which we're about to talk about Donovan Clingan, and other names like Reese Shea or Stephon Castle. But Alex Sarr looking like he is the guy at number 2 for the Wizards in the NBA draft. So let's get into it. So this is a report from Evan Sittery, but the actual source is at Kevin O'Connor, NBA. He's definitely an NBA insider, so definitely shout out to both of them. So the report is, it says, or quote unquote, it says the Hawks conducted a private workout with Donovan Clingan and are showing interest in potentially selecting him. Now, Atlanta appears open to the idea of trading down a few spots to secure Clingan, but the process is still ongoing. So we're going to look at another source where it says multiple sources throughout the league and in France are saying that the San Antonio Spurs and Atlanta Hawks have discussed a potential trade to take place on the evening of the upcoming NBA draft, where they are going to, where the Atlanta Hawks are going to trade the number 1 overall pick for the San Antonio Spurs 4th and 8th pick. Big news, y'all. Big news, because it tells you what? That Clingan is probably going to be at number 4 or number 8, depending on how far he falls, but he would not be the selection for the Hawks at number 1. And the Hawks are who? They are considering Zachary Shea, who, quote unquote, has been, we have said has been a target of the Spurs since last year, where they want to pair him with Wembanyama to make the French connection and San Antonio. So that is big news for Washington Wizards fans because a lot of us, including myself, are big fans of Alex Sarr. I think he is definitely my top choice at number 2, dream choice that is, because for a while he was rumored to be the target of the Hawks at number 1, and he's been the consistency, the mock draft number 1 for probably the last 3 months. And before him was Ron Holland, and then a few people before that. So big news, because it's becoming more and more clear that Alex Sarr is potentially on his way to DC. Now, like I said, I think that would be a really good move on both parties for both the Atlanta Hawks and the San Antonio Spurs, because again, Reese Shea, I think, is a perfect fit in San Antonio to pair him with Wembanyama. I think with the French connection, I think that's definitely could be potentially the nickname for those two, the French connection. But because I think, again, he's familiar with Reese Shea, and I think just from his skill set, it best fits San Antonio at number 1, man. I think this is a good trade for San Antonio because, again, they got to put a lot of talent around Wembanyama. So that will be a good move for Atlanta because you accumulate 2 picks. Now, do they hold on to Trae Young? Do they hold on to DeJounte Murray? That's definitely a conversation for another day. And actually, with us being the Wizards fans, do we really care? But, just from the realm of the NBA and looking at a domino, because that is a domino to fall within the NBA landscape in upcoming offseason, man. So, whether we care or not, it definitely would influence to a certain degree the direction the Wizards go, because that, Atlanta's out the game if they trade Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. But, they also have the chance to add a couple of nice pieces in this draft. But as we know, this is a developmental draft. So, again, looking at, Atlanta, what they hope to get out of this, is becoming more and more evident to me that they may try to trade Trae Young and or DeJounte Murray and go younger, man, because obviously you got young pieces there in Jalen Johnson and Kobe Buffkin. So they do have somewhat of a nice foundation to build upon as far as if they make the decision to go rebuild. They could trade Capella. We'll see what a Okonkwo. So I think there's a lot of options as far as Atlanta. But, getting back to the point, Alex Sarr would be a really good move for the Washington Wizards. And I think that all of us agree with that, man. Now, look at the roster construction, right? Where would they play him if he indeed is there at number 2, which I think he will be? Well, look at the roster construction. And I mentioned it on Twitter, aka X today, and I'm going to talk about Marvin Bagley next and Tristan Vukcevic. But Marvin Bagley, obviously he has a lot to prove. I talked about, I forgot to mention if he stays healthy and produces, should he be available for, or should he be up for an extension to stay in DC? We're going to talk about that. But, he at least is going to be here 1 year. Now, his value did go up a little bit. Now, it was a small sample size with his time in DC, but I felt like he found the right system, the right fit here. So, but and getting back to Alex Sarr, where would you play him? And with Marvin Bagley on the roster for 1 year, I would put Marvin Bagley the third at the 4 because you're boosting up his trade value, showing other teams that he can be versatile. You try Alex Sarr at the 5. Now, obviously, long term, you very well could see Alex Sarr, who a lot of people think that he could be even better at the 4. A lot of comparisons are Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think there's a really good comparison. Long term, we'll see how much Tristan Vukcevic evolves further and whether he could be that guy long term. So, but for the year coming up, if we pick Alex Sarr, and I think again, there's a big chance, a huge chance, and I'm gonna say there is probably a 95% chance that Alex Sarr is coming to DC. But again, where do you play him? I play him at the 5. I would play Marvin Bagley at the 4 to start out. But obviously, that is dependent on is Kyle Kuzma moved at that point because who else do you play at the 4? Now, if Kyle Kuzma is still here, maybe Marvin Bags is back up. We'll see, because obviously there's a lot of dominoes need to fall for the Wizards going into the offseason, man. But I think he definitely fits long term for the Wizards. His skill set as a rim protector, he's versatile. He can move. He's very smooth on his feet, man, for a big man at 7 foot. I do believe that his offensive skill set is going to evolve. I think he will develop a consistent 3-point shot. I think he will definitely add a mid-range. And I definitely want to see, him do a lot more, playing more with his back to the basket, definitely utilizing his frame and his body to get chances in the paint and actually, really become a threat in the paint and get active in rebounding. So, like I said, we've gone over Alex Sarr already as far as the scouting report, but he would be a really good move in DC. And in my eyes, man, would definitely speed up the rebuild because he's definitely a long-term option who I think that could be an all-star one day. I think Alex Sarr shows all-star potential. Now he has to be developed, but I think that he has all-star potential. When you match that up with, Bilal Coulibaly, who again is a talent who I think when he figures it out and puts together in a complete package has all-star potential. Now we'll see with Denny. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Denny. I definitely think he's part of the DNA, the foundation of the Wizards going forward. But here's the thing, with his extension, he's got suitors out there. Teams like Oklahoma City are looking to move. So could you eventually see him moved? We'll see. I think the only untradeable asset within the organization right now is Bilal Coulibaly because he was the first draft choice of the new front office. But Denny, he's still developing too. So definitely, I see him as part of the future for the Wizards going forward, but I also see him potentially being a trade chip for, teams like Oklahoma City because look, he's got value and he has proven that he is a good young player in this league, man. So Alex Sarr, there's a really good chance. Me personally, I think there's a 95% chance that Alex Sarr is coming to DC because again, with a potential trade for Atlanta moving back to 4-8 and for San Antonio going to number 1, it fits all parties, really all 3 teams. It fits Atlanta's timeline to a certain degree. It definitely fits San Antonio's, and it fits the Washington Wizards because looking at Atlanta, 4-8. Who says they stand pat at 4-8? Now they could grab Klingon and maybe and use the other pick to maybe get talent to bring to Atlanta. I don't know because I think Klingon definitely fits the now and the later for the Wizards, or not the Wizards, but the Hawks, because they need a center. I think they very well could move on from Clint Capella. So we'll see what they do. Do they stand pat with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray? They decide to go young and build around Kobe Buffkin and Jalen Johnson. We'll see because, if you add a guy like Klingon and maybe another young player, that definitely expedites a potential rebuild for Atlanta. Now, it fits San Antonio because, again, that French connection between Wembanyama and Risa Shea. And there was also that connection between Risa Shea and Coulibaly. But he would definitely be a really nice young 3-and-D wing to pair next to Victor Wembanyama, man. So I think that would be definitely a good move for San Antonio. And for the Wizards, Alex Sarr is a good piece, man, that I would say a majority of the fan base wants here in DC. So we get our guy. Now, do we trade back? That's obviously I've talked a lot about potential to trade back. But for right now, At number 2 is looking like Alex Sarr. So definitely, I'm definitely excited. Now, it's not definite. It's not, what I'm not saying it's not definite, but it's not set in stone. But I think that if I'm a betting man, there's a really strong chance that he comes to DC, man, because you're starting to see a lot of smoke where there's fire as far as his potential, fit here in DC and him potentially coming here. So, it's looking like Alex Sarr is the guy at number 2. It's not set in stone, but 95% chance in my opinion. So, looking at Marvin Bagley III, if he stays healthy and performs, could he very well be part of the Wizards' long-term outlook? We're going to talk about that. And Tristan Vukcevic, what is his long-term outlook in DC, depending on his performance and health? But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. So, look, we all, sometimes we carry a lot of things around on us, a lot of weight on our shoulders, man. And the best way to get that weight off your shoulders is talking to somebody else, because you can't keep your emotions all bottled up sometimes, because you explode, right? So sometimes you have to talk to somebody else. So let me recommend you the key to the ease of suffering, right? If you're thinking about starting therapy, please give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which are good reasons why people often do not go to counseling, right? Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched up with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge, which also is a really good point. So, look, get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And for my vets and military folk out there, Hotel Echo Lima Papa.com/LockedOnNBA. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Lord, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, let's get back into it. Marvin Bagley III. Now, obviously, real quick, I'm going to go over his pros and cons, as we all know. Now, we're going to start the cons because, obviously, what are the cons with Marvin Bagley III, right? Health. Always been a big issue, him staying healthy. He has some time being injured with the Wizards. Obviously, drive, motor. A lot of people saying that he's a low motor guy. He lacks confidence, a guy that doesn't really play hard all the time, doesn't, takes plays off. Okay, and that was a common complaint about Marvin Bagley III, dating back to, Sacramento King days and the Detroit Pistons days. But the positives is he is a center who, at 6'11", man, he can definitely provide rebounding, points in the paint, when he's motivated, rim protection. He can shoot a mid-range shot. He can shoot a three-point shot. A lot of people got on me on Twitter saying he's not a guy who can shoot. Well, he shot 47% from three this year. So, I mean, he can definitely hit the three-point shot. Now, is he a sniper on a consistent basis? Nah, I'm not saying that. But he's a guy who can definitely stretch the floor. So, with those MOs, the fact that health, if he stays healthy and if he performs, because let's take a look at the stat line real quick. This previous season, he actually averaged 11.7 points a game, behind 6.2 rebounds, 0.7 blocks, and he shot, on the regular season, he shot 39.1%. So I don't know where I got 47%. I was misinformed. This previous season, he shot 39%. So looking at that, and I don't know where the stat of 47%. I mean, I must have misread. But looking at the fact of the matter is he can shoot from three-point shot, right? He's shown that 39% is not too shabby. Because around league average is around 35, 36%. So he's a guy who can definitely shoot three-point shot. He can shoot mid-range shot. He's a guy who came in, definitely improved our area of need, which was rebounding and interior defense and interior offense. So he definitely filled those needs. So the biggest thing with Marvin Bagley III is, can he stay healthy and can he stay motivated? Can he provide high motor performance? And then, look, I said it time and time again that he has shown that in the right system, in the right environment, a young player who hasn't hit his prime yet, who needed to change the scenery, very well can be that player that, teams aspired him to be. Whether, when they chose him, Sacramento chose him, they envisioned a guy that I believe that can be that guy in DC when he's healthy and when he keeps a consistent high motor performance. So the question for everybody, man, definitely comment below and let me know what you're thinking is. And I'm going to put this poll question out, which is, if Marvin Bagley III stays healthy and if he really breaks out to a certain degree, And then if you look at his age, which right now he is age 25, so he still fits the timeline, right, for a rebuilding team because he'll be hitting his prime within the next year or so. So if he stays healthy, and if his performance, if he breaks out here in DC, what the Wizards are trying to do, would you consider him signing an extension to stay in DC? And like I said, the cons, I get it. Injury prone. The fact of the matter is, a low motor. I get all that. But if he proves it, which, with him being an expiring contract, this would, to a certain degree, be a prove-it year for him. So if he stays healthy and he performs and he breaks out, because, look, he can still be developed. And with development being the biggest part of what Brian Keefe brings to the table, the biggest thing why they revamped the scouting department and development part of the team, the big reason why they brought in a whole new front office is the whole MO to the Washington Wizards is development of young talent. And at age 25, he's still young talent. He's still a guy that hadn't hit his prime yet. And he's shown that with the system in DC, within Brian Keefe's system, and what they're trying to do as far as developing players and get the most out of players, you very well could see him break out next year. So if he stays healthy and he breaks out, would I extend Marvin Bagley III? And I'm going to say yes. No, and I get it. And that's why I put it, kind of depending on the fact that if he stays healthy and if he breaks out, especially in rebounding and points, and definitely stretching the floor on a consistent basis, yeah, I would definitely consider signing him to an extension. Now, it ain't gonna be a max, obviously, but it's definitely, I think he's a talent that you definitely keep in DC. Now, if he continues to have injury issues, if he continues to, lack a high motor and take plays off, then obviously with him being an expiring contract, you can let him go. So, that's what I'm saying. This is a really high risk, high reward type of deal that we have with Marvin Bagley III, because again, if he breaks out, if he shows that he can work on the injury bug and be a lot more healthy in the long term, you very well, and you should talk to him about an extension, because he's a guy at 25, still fits the timeline, and in a certain degree, if he does break out and stays healthy, could not only knock time off the rebuild, but he could be a nice young piece. Now, I advocated with him being a power forward as opposed to a center. I think that with Tristan Vukcevic, with potentially Alex Sarr, 7-footers being in DC, you could go big. And people, the biggest complaint is we would not have enough to stretch the floor. I mean, that wouldn't be the problem with Alex Sarr. And Tristan Vukcevic is shown that he can shoot a 3-point shot. He can definitely shoot a mid-range. So, Marvin Bagley III has shown that he can stretch the floor. So I don't think that's really a concern with Marvin Bagley III at the 4 and Alex Sarr and Tristan Vukcevic at center, which I like I just like the sound of that, man, because, we already talked about Alex Sarr, but that could potentially be your core in the front court. So I think that I would definitely entertain an extension for my Marvin Bagley III. If he indeed shows that he can be healthy and he can produce on a consistent basis and have a high motor and play with some confidence, play with some dog. And I think that after that, and so this is definitely a prove-it year for Marvin Bagley III. And I think that if he proves it, you definitely sign him to an extension, because I definitely think that, again, if he can prove it, he's definitely part of the future in DC. So we're going to talk about Tristan Vukcevic, man. And could he be a long-term answer at the center position as a starter or a backup for the Washington Wizards? So before we talk about that, next, tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So summertime means baseball. Thank the Lord. The NBA Finals and more. You can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. There's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit the next home run. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, everybody. So let's get into Tristan Vukcevic. Let me switch my players over real quick. So Tristan Vukcevic. I guess I don't know if this is officially considered his rookie year this previous season, or it would be because he didn't play a full year. But let me pull him up real quick, because he came over later. But the fact of the matter, when he came over and he played really good minutes, man, in my opinion. So you definitely see the potential, especially offensively. So looking at Tristan Vucevic's previous season, he averaged 8.5 points, 3.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and he shot 43.3% from field goal range. Now, looking at an extended, he averaged around 15 points. So, but I felt like he got the most out of 15 minutes, 15 minutes a game, excuse me, where he shot around 27.8% from three, and also shot 77.3% from free throw. So let's look at the pros and the cons of Tristan Vukcevic. Offensively, you see the potential. Now, yeah, he shot 27.8% from three, but you saw the capability because there was times where there was multiple games where he made more than one 3-point shot. I think the biggest thing is when him coming over so late in the season, man, he needed time to acclimate to the speed of the NBA. And so I think the 3-point shot is definitely going to be money next year. Now, can he still develop? Absolutely. Still improving his 3-point shooting? Yeah. Maybe a fast release. But his release ain't bad at all. And you necessarily need to work on the speed of the release because it looked fluid. So his offensive potential is through the roof, in my opinion. Rebounds, I would definitely want to see him boost his rebounds up to at least 6 to 7 rebounds a game. Now, obviously, is contingent on what minutes played. Now, with Alex Sarr coming, potentially come to the Wizards, that would relegate Tristan Vukcevic to be the backup, unless they go switch it with Bagley. But I don't, with Alex Sarr coming to DC, I don't see a situation where Tristan's going to start. I think he definitely was, especially with him being a second round pick, where we definitely got our money's worth with the second round pick. But here's the thing, I definitely see him, being a backup to an Alex Sarr or a Marvin Bagley III, depending on which direction they go, if Alex Sarr is indeed drafted by the Washington Wizards. But Tristan Vukcevic, again, is kind of like Marvin Bagley III, right? Because the fact that he is a second round pick, I believe he is in a 2-year contract. So let me double check that, because I believe it's a 2-year contract for second round picks, but it's still a proven year for Tristan Vukcevic, man. So like I said, according to Sport Track, Vukcevic signed a 2-year $4.8 million deal with the Wizards. So this would be a contract year for him, with him being a second round pick. This was a proven year. So kind of along the lines of Marvin Bagley III. And I'm kind of throw the same question to you guys. If Tristan Vukcevic shows progress, would you consider signing him to an extension? Which, with him being a second round pick, with the sample size being smaller, obviously you're going to get a massive hometown discount by the Washington Wizards. So you're not going to break the bank to retain Tristan Vukcevic. So would you entertain? Because look, let's not get it twisted. You're going to have to extend him if you indeed, with him being a second round pick, and with him being in a 2-year deal, if he performs and kind of develops the way you want him to, you would have to extend him. So, to add another piece to, the future as far as salary wise. But I don't think you're going to have to break the bank to retain him. And I think that, look, if Tristan Vukcevic shows that he can develop and improve and definitely become a better player here in DC, you definitely retain him. That's what I'm saying, that long term, whether you retain Marvin Bagley III or not, with Tristan Vukcevic being a 7-footer, with Alex Sarr being a 7-footer who could play the 4, you could potentially have, okay, bear with me now, you could potentially have 2 guys at 7 foot who can stretch the floor. And that is the best case scenario in the modern day mold of the NBA center and the NBA big man. If you have a 4 and a 5, both at 7 foot, who can both stretch the floor and are athletic, come on, man. And I think that should be somewhat of a vision for the Wizards going forward, that if you don't retain Marvin Bagley III, you definitely consider the chance that Tristan Vukcevic and Alex Sarr could be your tandem in the front court. And at 7 foot, and the fact that they both can stretch the floor, that is crazy, crazy nice in my opinion. And that's something I would love here in DC, in my opinion, because you go big, you go modern, and you definitely still stretch the floor, considering what we do with other positions. So that is definitely something I would like to see here in DC, man. So again, you definitely let me know what you guys are thinking. Like I said, I'm gonna put a couple polls out tonight, and I'm definitely gonna see what you guys are at, man. But again, Alex Sarr coming to DC looks like a real possibility. Marvin Bagley III and Tristan Vukcevic are both on proven deals, in my opinion. So can one or both of them be retained and be part of the long-term future in DC? So again, appreciate you guys, man. Definitely let me comment below. Let me know what you guys are thinking. I'm definitely going to put a couple polls out. Looking forward, guys. We're going to look at, again, some options around number 26 and number 51 in the second round. Can the Washington Wizards, can Will Dawkins and Michael Winger find another jewel in the rough in the second round? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But before we do, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts at Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So again, I will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to chop it up and talk about the 26th pick and the 51st pick and see, again, can Will Dawkins find another jewel in the rough in the second round? But we want to talk about it tomorrow. Again, appreciate you guys. Hail to the Wizards and peace. See you guys tomorrow night.